Okay, so this is the last video for 9.4. It's about outliers. Here we say that outliers are values within a data set that are so extreme that they move the mean in such a way as to make it unrepresentative of the rest of the data. We can intuitively recognize values that quote unquote don't belong, or we can use math to determine an outlier. So we learned about the IQR, the interquartile range, and we're going to actually be able to use that information in a little math to determine if a number is really statistically an outlier. What I'd like you to do right now is, let's see, I need 1, 2, 3. So I want you to go 1, 2, 3 lines down. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, actually 4. And I want you to draw a line all the way across. Put an arrow at both ends. And then in the middle, kind of in the middle, I want you to kind of make it somewhat even. Okay, so imagine that this is a number line, and this line in the middle represents the median, also known as Q2. And that this is Q3, quartile 3, and this is quartile 1. And then the range between these two, as you already know, is the IQR, interquartile range. IQR. Okay, now if this represents your data, and this is quartile 1 and this is quartile 3, when you get out farther and farther away from the data, eventually you're becoming an outlier. Same thing with down on this end, on the lower half. So there is a point at which the numbers become outliers. Both in the upper half, and in the lower half. Now, that point is signified by quartile 3, whatever number quartile 3 is, plus 1.5 or 1.5 times the IQR. So if you take quartile number 3, quartile 3, and then add it to 1.5 times the interquartile range, that number, anything greater than that number, will be considered an outlier. On the lower side, you have Q1, quartile 1, minus 1.5 times the IQR will give you an outlier on the lower half. So let's use an example. Let's see, we'll go with 350, 356, 364, 376, 390, 396, 400, and 468. Okay, first of all, let's divide this data in half. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's going to be between these two numbers right here. If I add these together and divide by 2, I'm going to end up with a number 382 is our quartile 2 or median. 382. And then if we are going to find quartile 1 and quartile 3 would be between these two numbers. If I add them together and divide by 2, I end up with This is Q3. That's going to be 398. Now here in the middle of the lower half, we have quartile 1, and that number is going to be 360. So quartile 1 is 360, quartile 3 is 398. So our IQR, sorry, that didn't look good. IQR equals 398, or Q3, minus Q1, which is 360, or 38. That's our IQR for this data. So we're going to see if we have any outliers mathematically. Let's figure out if the 468 is technically an outlier. So for that one, we're going to take our Q3, which is 398, plus 1.5 times 38, and we get 398 plus 57 equals 455. Anything greater than 455 is an outlier, and look at that, we have a 468. So since 468 is greater than 455, it is an outlier. So that guy right there is an outlier. Now, I think intuitively we probably see that 350 is not an outlier. It seems awfully close to 356, but let's just check it. To check if this is an outlier, we would take Q1, which is 360, minus 1.5 times 38, the IQR, and that equals 360 minus 57, which is 303. All right, 350 is definitely not less than 303, since no data is less than 303. There are no outliers in the lower half. Okay, and let's see. Oh, sorry about that. I just realized that that was pretty much out of sight for you. So there you go. You can copy that. Sorry about that. And I will talk to you soon.